Well, let's go to the ABC's Martin Cudahy, who joins us now in Athens. Martin, if we could start with the shock resignation of the Finance Minister, Yanis Varoufakis, how is the country reacting to his departure? He was, after all, the face of Greece's defiance against austerity at the many Eurozone meetings he attended.
Well, it's not so much a shock that he's resigned, but the timing of it is what's thrown everyone here into a tailspin. No one expected Yanis Varoufakis to resign less than 12 hours after the trend began to emerge in the referendum that there would be, in fact, a rejection of the terms of the latest bailout package. So Mr Varoufakis hasn't spoken. He's released that statement that you referred to earlier, Oscar. There is a very, very large crowd of journalists from here in Greece and around the world waiting outside the finance department here in Athens, waiting for him to comment on his sudden departure. So we're still waiting for him to provide some more context around his decision, but it remains to be seen exactly how that plays out with negotiations over the coming days.
The Greek Prime Minister, Alexis Tsipras, still maintains Greece will remain part of the Eurozone, but we have heard from various European leaders that the country's membership is now at stake, or at the very least it could be compromised or threatened. What do Greeks want to see happen now that the referendum is over?
Well, Greeks are very proud of their democratic history, and that was very, very evident last night on the streets of Athens, particularly in Syntagma Square, which you can see behind me in front of the Greek Parliament building here. They were very optimistic that this no vote or no result would lead to a rejection of the austerity that has been crippling Greece's economy for several years now. But they're also quite confident that Greece will stay inside the Eurozone, and that's despite those repeated warnings you mentioned. So I'm not sure where exactly that optimism stems from, Oscar, but they seem quite confident that Greece will remain a part of Europe and will remain inside the Eurozone. Of course, we'll have to wait and see.
We do have some Eurozone meetings happening in the coming days. Is there any word on how the Prime Minister is preparing for those talks? Well,
the Eurozone leaders have said that they expect Mr Tsipras to come up with a new bailout plan and bring that to them. So they need to be presented with some sort of plan where the Eurozone leaders can see the structure of the latest bailout and the terms of that. So we're yet to see any detail of what that plan would look like. So we don't exactly know what Mr Tsipras is going to take to Eurozone leaders. And of course all this has to be remembered within the context that those European leaders have been quite scathing of Greece and of its decision to vote no to the terms of the last bailout deal. So it, as I say, it remains to be seen exactly what details or what plan or package Mr Tsipras will take to Eurozone leaders.
Greek banks have been closed ever since the European Central Bank cut off emergency funding to Greece's banks. Is there any word about when they might open, given that the vote has now taken place?
Well, Mr Varoufakis had been saying, prior to announcing his resignation, of course, he had been saying that he expected banks to open tomorrow, so that's Tuesday here in Athens. But given the fact that it doesn't look like there will be any lifeline or extension of credit offered to Greece, I think that that's exceedingly optimistic at best. Of course, the European Central Bank is meeting today to decide whether to offer any more credit to Greece or any emergency funding to keep the economy afloat. But I don't think it's very likely that they'll make a decision. They will wait until tomorrow, when Eurozone leaders meet late tomorrow, to decide whether or not to proceed with this package that will be presented to them by Greece. So at the very earliest, I would say banks will be open perhaps Wednesday. But if Eurozone leaders aren't pleased or don't accept the terms of the bailout offer presented to them, then of course we are entering unknown territory then. The country will run out of cash within a few days, and of course that leads us towards what has become known as a Grexit. If Greece runs out of money, the only way forward is really for it to start to print the drachma or some other form of currency here, and that would of course mean that it's no longer using the euro, and it would slide out of the Eurozone.
Yes, that's right. That is the alternative, isn't it? And from what you're hearing in the community there, is there any appetite for Greece to get out of the Eurozone and revert back to the drachma?
There's not a big appetite for Greece to leave the Eurozone. Of course, you have to remember that Greece can leave the Eurozone, but so that means not use the euro as currency, but stay within the European Union, similar to, say, Great Britain, which uses the British pound, or Denmark as well has its own currency as well, the krona. So you have to remember that is a possibility, but Greeks really don't want that. They say that they are a part of Europe. They've traditionally been a part of Europe, that they're the founders of modern democracy. They deserve a place inside the Eurozone. So, well, that is their ultimate desire, but again, there is a great deal of uncertainty surrounding the next couple of days. If the Eurozone leaders don't come up with some sort of package or some sort of extension of credit to Greece, then the banks will run out of money. Some estimates say that there are only 500 million euros in Greek banks, and for a country with a population of 500 million, and a lot of people, of course, are here at this time of the year on holidays, they'll be taking money out of the system. So that's not a lot of money, and it could really, genuinely, Oscar, spell disaster just within a few days.
Yes, still very much a precarious situation. Martin Cuddihy in Athens, thanks very much for the update.